for PhD students to support them in their career development and employability. It's clear that research and researchers in terms of the output permeate every aspect of our life and society. It's all around us in what we wear, what we eat, how we travel, what we travel on, what we walk on in terms of pavement and roads. There's no aspect of our life that research isn't part of. And yet sometimes research students can fall through the cracks to some extent when it comes to getting career support. We're very easy fall into the trap of thinking that they're intelligent, which they are, that they're directed in a certain direction, which is to do research. But we sometimes don't think enough around the personal journey and the talent journey that they're on. That while they may be academically excellent, that their grades are probably first class, that they may still need support from career professionals. We know that students on research degrees have a long road ahead of them, and we know that they face many, many challenges. We know that, for example, the challenges we as a society set them is very significant. The UN's Sustainable Development Goals, we're tasking researchers with coming up with solutions to eradicating poverty, ensuring that there's no hunger, that we have equality and equity across our societies on a global scale, and obviously that we ensure the health and well-being of our citizens. And if there is ever a year that has evidenced the importance of research and the output of research, it's the one that's gone past, and I'm absolutely delighted to have had 2 shots of the AstraZeneca vaccine in my arm at this stage. So I think researchers have an awful lot to do. The contribution is massive, and we have a real obligation to support them in their journey. I'm going to welcome now Fiona Hayes from Trinity College Dublin to talk to us about the project, and Fiona will probably talk for 20 to 25 minutes. If you've got questions, please do pop them into the Q&A, and hopefully we'll have some time to take those on board and to address them at a later stage. Okay, so Fiona, good to see you. Thanks for coming along, and I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thanks so much, David, for the lovely introduction, and delighted to be here today. Thanks so much for the invitation. And I'm aware it's the last session, believe it or not, of the conference. So I hope to make it as engaging and as interesting as possible. And as David said, it's very topical in these times. The entire Trinity Careers Service team have spent a long while, almost 18 months now, working on the design of this innovative careers and employability module for PhD students. So I'm just going to share my slides with you. Bring up the presentation. Okay, so David, you tell me if there's any issues there, but I think we're looking okay with the slides moving on. Okay, so the focus for today is to give you a brief overview of the approach that we took to develop this module, a high-level overview there. And then I suppose the interesting bit for all of our members here today would be that I'm going to give a little bit of a showcase, I suppose a flavor of the innovative aspects of the module. And I decided to choose the online aspects. I just think it's really the world we're in at the moment. I think it's the area that people might have the most curiosity about. So we developed 5 interactive online sessions with Trinity Online Services, our technology partner, 2 online interactive tools, a skills audit tool tailored to the needs of PhD students, and an interview practice exercise, and a work-based learning offering, which was developed with a strategic consultation group. And then I'll go on to discuss some of the challenges encountered, not least of which doing this during a pandemic, and some recommendations that I would have if any of you are thinking of doing something similar in future. Okay, so maybe just to start with a bit of a reflective activity. So maybe for all of us to think about what approach should we take when designing a careers and employability module for PhD students, and thinking of this cohort, because they are a specialized cohort and they do have specific needs. And way back in December 2019, pre-pandemic, myself and Orla Bannon, the Director of Careers, we sat down and we brainstormed how we were going to take on this big challenge, I suppose. And we spoke to students, we carried out some focus groups. I did a bit of research and benchmarking. I spoke to colleagues in other universities in Ireland and abroad. I read reports such as on Vitae, for example, and we really came up with a couple of different areas that would be important here to consider. So the first being flexibility. You know, that these students, sometimes they're not always able to commit to the same time at the same place for a 100% face-to-face module, for example. So that's why we decided blended learning would be the best scenario here. And also that maybe not all, not all assessments would be optional, maybe that you could access material at a time that suited them. So building in flexibility, and even within this 10 credit module, that we might have the option to do a smaller 5 credit module for those students for whom it suited better. Tailored supports then, that every single support within this module would be uniquely tailored to the needs of PhD students. I don't think it's enough these days to say that you'll take a CV session for even master's students and just adapt it slightly to meet the needs of this cohort, because they are quite specialised. We've all, had the experience maybe of giving CV advice to a PhD student who wants to go into academia, a challenging prospect in itself. And from that point of view, it can be quite specialised advice. The students tell us that they'd like a community of practice. They like to learn from each other. So we, up until very recently, have been running a 5 credit module for PhD students with another learning support division in Trinity. And that was 100% face-to-face pre-pandemic. And the students always said, in the reviews, that they loved meeting each other and meeting people from other disciplines. And so we wanted to retain that, but also bring in alumni, industry partners, and academics as well. We've heard a lot today about resilience from David, that wonderful presentation at lunchtime. It is really, really important for this cohort in particular. As a careers consultant, I would sometimes meet students who struggle with perfectionism, a fear of failure, imposter syndrome, and how do we help them, to obtain a growth mindset, to maybe switch? They might have always thought they want to become an academic and now things are different, and how do they deal with that? And so we have a session dedicated to that, an online session, and we also have a podcast as well. And then finally, critical reflection. We wanted really to meet the PhD students at their level, to go to the deeper levels of reflection, moving away from simply describing events or experiences and more having a dialogue with yourself and conducting more a deeper level. So here we would have looked at the work of Jenny Moon or Hatton and Smith, the levels of reflection there. Give you a brief overview of the module. As I said, it's blended. The students are going to learn together. It's interdisciplinary, so all students from all disciplines are welcome to join. And it's self-directed learning as well. So these students are quite mature, independent learners, so that is reflected in the module as well. It has been designed and will be delivered in partnership with senior academics, particularly those who look after the postgraduate community in Trinity, industry partners, a selection in our consultation group, private and public sector, and of course the students themselves. It does offer work-based learning opportunities specifically tailored to this cohort, and I'll talk to you more about that later. The overall aim is to build student career readiness to achieve their potential in no matter what career aim they have, whether that's in academia or beyond academia. And we decided that it's open to PhD students, full-time years 2 to 4, part-time years 2 to 6, and that's all disciplines, international, mature, students with additional needs, so pretty much across the board. We want to make it as inclusive as possible. So what approach did we take? As I outlined, we actually put in a bid for funding with the National Forum. So this is a National Forum funded project, which really helped us to make it as innovative as possible. So we were delighted when we were successful. And at that stage, then we had to kind of sit down and really think, with myself as project lead and Orla as project sponsor, how are we going to map out this project? What are the strategic and operational objectives? How are we going to resource it? It became obvious pretty quickly that we would need support. We would need to partner with the likes of Trinity Online, for example. We would need to collaborate as well. And how would we map out the budget, So as I said, I carried out quite a bit of research and benchmarking. And from a lot of that, I did discover a lot of the issues like resilience, as I mentioned, but also a need for a very in-depth look at skills, and particularly skills for non-academic opportunities. So this is one of the reasons why we decided to develop a skills audit as well. So then we came to the task of defining the module. And for this, I actually partnered with a senior academic developer in the Centre for Academic Practice in Trinity. And this was really, really helpful. He worked with me just one-on-one on many, many occasions to assist with defining the learning outcomes for the module and each session, mapping that onto assessment criteria, the assessment methodology, the overall evaluation approach. And then when we were going for approval, the module descriptors and proposals, there was quite a lot of work there because we wanted the quality to be really, really robust. And then in terms of developing the module content, this was really a team effort on behalf of the Trinity Careers Service. So all of the careers consultants were involved in designing the online and face-to-face sessions. For online, we partnered with Trinity Online Services, who helped us make the sessions interactive and animated and really interesting and user-friendly. And they also helped us with the editing of podcasts, which we scatter around the module, and also the design of videos to introduce the module. There's a showcase video, which I can share with anyone after today if you're interested and you want to learn more. And also they helped us conduct expert interviews with employers and academics as well. So we're really trying to appeal to lots of different learning styles in this module as well. As I said, we developed a work-based learning framework and we involved the key stakeholders in that. The student voice is always key. We had the president of the Graduate Students' Union in the consultation group. We involved students at the beginning, but also in the design and then finally for testing. When I suppose you can only go so far with online content and then you need to test it. So then we built in any recommendations at that stage. We're currently finalizing promotional materials, employer brochure, student flyers, that kind of thing, and it will roll out in September 2021. The endorsement quality approval process was actually very rigorous. So we attended 5 internal review meetings chaired by the Vice Provost in Trinity. We did 1 international peer review with the National Forum, and we presented at the Graduate Studies Committee 3 times for approval and to increase awareness. So lots of presenting experience. Okay, so again, to give you a sense of what does the module actually look like. So the 10 credit module has 3 different streams. You can see them there: careers, skills, and work-based learning. And these are the names of the sessions. And there are 5 online and there are 4 face-to-face. And you can see there on the right, there's an option to complete a 5 credit module. And there you would only do the careers and skills, but you actually learn together. So you would attend the face-to-face sessions, online discussion forums, webinars, all together, 2 groups learning off each other. And what makes up the bulk of the 10 credit is the work-based learning sessions and the experience itself. This is supported by lots of different activities and events, such as the podcasts I mentioned, mentoring as an option to extend after the work-based learning experience, live skills webinars with employers. Reflection is at the heart of everything. So students would be encouraged to fill out their journal through Blackboard, the VLE that we would be using here in Trinity. But again, I'm sure many of you would have Moodle or other VLEs that this would work for as well. So now this is a bit that you might find quite interesting. I wanted to give you a showcase of the live aspects. I won't be able to show you the interactivity, but I do have screen grabs, which will give you a good feeling for it. So the skills audit tool is compulsory pre-work for the students, and they also look at a podcast introducing the module. And this is something that I designed with input from the Career Service team and the academic developer. And it was informed by the likes of the IUA, Graduate Skills Statement, the VITE, RDF, other documents as well. And so this is a self-reflective tool, and students complete 3 categories. So the one that's highlighted here is communication skills. So students can complete any category in any order. They can also go in and out of the tool at any stage, and it will remember where you were. So what they do is they rate their confidence levels. So it's not an objective scoring, it's a self-rating. So they look at the statement, it flies in from the left, and they rate themselves. So here the student is saying they're moderately confident. And then when they come to the end of the category, they're given tailored feedback, whether it's high, medium, or low confidence in terms of how they've rated themselves. And then you can see what there on the right-hand side in blue, you've got helpful, practical suggestions. So all the time we're trying to build the student's confidence. And then they go away and they download their reflective PDF and they continue the reflective work. They give evidence, they talk about how they're feeling, and they bring the printout to the first session which is mapping your skills onto career options. Okay, so here's another one. This is preparing for your work-based learning experience and developed by my colleague Marielle Kelly. And these learning objectives are listed at the start of every single session in the module. You'll see the language there with the verbs, particularly the first one, critically evaluate. So we're trying to lift the level. We use Bloom's taxonomy for this. So again, at the higher level, the higher order verbs, to try and make sure that it's at the PhD level, create, design, critically evaluate, those kind of verbs. And here, these questions would fly in from the left, reflecting on a previous work experience, and it pauses. So the student can, make notes, they can go away and do some other work and come back, and it will remember where they left off. Here's another one, the art and craft of a great CV, developed by my colleague Orla O'Dwyer. And so again, really clean messaging. The student can select any box and do it in any order to learn all about the different steps to completing a strong CV. This is a separate video, putting your academic CV together because it's quite a specialized topic. Then we have presenting your best self at interview, also developed by Orla O'Dwyer. She was quite busy. And again, quite a challenge, to develop an online session that's, 25 minutes long only in terms of engagement. And how do you, cover off competency-based questions, academic interviews? So again, the students can click on research questions, teaching questions there and get samples. They choose how deep they want to go. Then there's an interview practice exercise that I developed with a graduate of film and drama studies in Trinity. Students complete this after the interview session. So I pose a question and there's 2 sample answers. The student picks the answer they feel is the strongest. They again get tailored feedback. So this is considered to be a strong answer. Why? And we talk about the tone of voice, the body language, and what the interviewer was looking for. If you select the other answer, well, then actually there's room for improvement. And this is what Marcus needs to improve on. And here, again, we're trying to use positive, encouraging language for the student. So it's a positive learning experience. So when we trialed this in a pilot with students in January, they found this quite a fun tool to use. This one here, the intercultural competence, is a really, really important area, as you know, for PhD students to look at. It's a global world they'll be working in. It's a very international community and cohort as well. So here we partnered with Louise, working in global relations in Trinity, and my colleague Marielle Kelly on this one as well. And so nice, clear visualization here, easy to digest information on what is culture. This is an example of a drag and drop exercise where the student is really tested on their knowledge and then they're given the information afterwards. So they simply drag and drop the item on the left into whether they think it's visible or invisible, and it turns red or green depending on whether the answer is correct or incorrect. So again, we're just trying to build a bit of interactivity and fun into the process as well. This one is essential, navigating the emotions of planning and managing your career, developed by my colleague John Wynn. This is trying to tackle, boosting the student's resilience. So these boxes would fly in from the left one by one. So again, a student might be coping with setbacks in their career, and there's a voiceover going through all of these slides as well. So you hear John talking through and explaining each of these challenges. And here's where we applied a CBT framework to a student maybe feeling that their skills aren't good enough, that they're not going to translate well when they go to look for a job. And so you encourage the student to look for evidence that supports the thought and that does not support the thought, bringing them around to more positive frame of mind and way of thinking. And so the words actually fly in, so you actually feel like you're writing and taking the notes as you're looking at it. So again, just trying to show you how it's very interactive. And again, CBT can be very useful in a careers setting, like David was talking about at lunchtime as well. So moving now, I suppose, to the work-based learning offering, I'm sure you're all very interested in this and how we came to a conclusion about this. And so when we sat down and looked at this and looked at what other universities were doing, there's not so much being done, for the PhD student space in this area. So we were clear that we wanted it to be, a work experience that was at PhD level and would utilize PhD skills. We wanted to offer different work-based learning options. So for example, for some students, an internship just mightn't suit. They might want to do a mini consulting experience or something entrepreneurial. So we wanted to offer different options. Of course, it has to be flexible. For some students, they mightn't be able to do a big chunk. They might want to go in for a couple of hours at a time over a couple of weeks, or the supervisor mightn't be able to release them. So from that point of view, we wanted to build in flexibility. And finally, we needed to ensure that there's a range of settings, whether that's, you know, a multinational corporation or a think tank or a department in a university, that there are different options there. So a 10 credit module is 250 hours. So we only had a certain amount of hours to play around with. So for the work-based learning experience, we came up with 100 hours, which is roughly about 2.5 weeks. It doesn't have to be done all together though. And we have 3 main options: the mini internship, which is an immersive experience, and it's where the student is undertaking an assigned piece of work within an organization, and there would be a bit of work shadowing at the start as well. The consulting project is as it sounds. There's a brief, there might be a bit of training in consulting skills if required. There's applied research, and there's giving a presentation, maybe solving the problem towards the end as well. And then allowing the student to come up with an idea, whether it's entrepreneurial, community service, just to give them a little bit of flexibility there as well. It is self-sourced. However, there's a lot of assistance from Trinity Careers. So we would talk to our industry partners, we would advertise roles, we would ask them, what skills are you looking for this year? What's your wish list? And work with them to advertise that. There might be opportunities through the school or department, or indeed through their funding body, if that's the kind of PhD that they have. We provide support pre and post with those sessions that I mentioned, and during with live Q&A webinars, and also with the assessment. Their host supervisor would sit down with them and give them a kind of a qualitative assessment, and then the student would be required to complete a self-assessment, a rating of their skills as well, and that does count towards the final result. And there is an option, as I mentioned before, to continue on with the Impart Industry Mentoring Program. So that's where the organization and the student agree after the 100 hours to have a flexible arrangement with the host organization supervisor or a mentor within the organization, and they meet in whatever way that suits, whether that's online, face-to-face, once a month, or, you know, less regularly, and a mentoring relationship continues if deemed beneficial to both parties. So do feel free to ask me any questions about the, I suppose, the particulars of the module, the work-based learning, the approach that we took. But I'm very conscious that, you know, you might be interested in the kind of challenges that we encountered and any recommendations that we might have to offer as well. So the first was that, you know, the pandemic hit. When we started, we didn't expect this to happen, of course. No one did. So I suppose it delayed us a little bit. We got a bit of an extension on the project. It was originally meant to be 12 months. So the employers really weren't able to meet us to talk or anything like that in the summer of 2020. So we had to put things back a bit. So you have to be flexible. Sometimes you have to make contingency plans as well. You might have to run something 100% online, as we've all had to do in recent times. The project management end of things was quite challenging. You saw the reporting requirements were quite rigorous. For each of those, there was a lot of reporting, submitting detailed work plans, preparing presentations, videos, showcases. And we were asked about impact an awful lot, which I suppose is a really good learning. You know, personally, I found it a great learning, but it does take time. So do build in time to reflect if you're doing something similar. Do build in impact assessment if you're rolling out anything like this. Think about the short-term, long-term impacts. Think about how is it possible to measure impact, particularly with something like a culture change. And this might be a bit of a culture change for some academics, you know, in Trinity, where we're asking them to be a little bit more involved than they might have been before. And think about how you might communicate impact to different stakeholders as well. We did find the design of the online components very time consuming. So again, you're thinking about, how do I design slides for online? How do I make them user friendly? Once they're made interactive, then I need to check them, I need to edit them. That was an ongoing process. I need to design a script, I need to edit the script, and then you need to record it. And of course, there was the obvious distractions, you know, kids, there was roadworks, buses, all these things when you're trying to record and work from home. So do allocate resources and time to do that as well. Securing So I suppose we recommend to involve academics in the design. We would have met with the senior academics on the postgrad side. We would have given them information, allowed them to ask questions, presented at committee level, got their approval, and involve them in the consultation side. And we'll probably run a Q&A as well before rolling out the module for supervisors, because no doubt they'll have a lot of questions. How to appeal to all PhD students, because they are such a diverse community. I suppose if you test the content, if you run focus groups, then you get a sense of what people think. If you try and make sure it's a diverse set, you know, maybe arts and humanities, science, engineering, lots of diversity there. Do listen to them, implement any changes. And then later on, I suppose you could deliver some of the content like CVs for AHSS, CVs for science, because it is quite different. And you could also set up different support groups, you know, depending on how big it is going forward over the years as well. It's always a challenge to get the students to engage within discussion forums online, especially. And I remember talking to someone in King's College London, and he was saying they had run something similar and they found that there was zero engagement on the discussion forums. So it can really be a challenge. And I think these are, again, independent, mature learners. So I think they appreciate having flexibility. Maybe not everything being completely compulsory. I would make the discussion forums optional, but really encourage them, maybe pose some interesting questions, promote the module well. In later years, you might have a few case studies, give them options to do a shorter module and optional activities as well. And of course, designing the work-based learning experiences can be a challenge as well. I think you just need to collaborate, you need to talk to people. I think from my point of view, you know, some of the key takeaways from the project will be that strategic collaboration is key, to involve the industry partners, the academics, the students, keep talking to people, and because they really have a lot of, you know, valid points to make. Think about who you can learn from. You know, do you need to bring in expertise like on the technology side, like the academic practice? Who has expertise on resilience or on reflection, for example, in your institution? Would they do a podcast? So from that point of view, there's so much expertise there. And do build in time to reflect as you go through and think about how you might be able to demonstrate impact, you know, going forward as well. So almost at the end now, just to say that the rollout, as I said, will be in September. So it hasn't been rolled out officially yet, but we've done a bit of a pilot with some of the content. We'll continue to monitor, evaluate and review on an ongoing basis. We will need to ensure that the content is responsive to the student needs. We'll probably need to look at the skills audit in a couple of years' time. We'll need to check with, you know, that it's relevant from a labour market point of view as well. We'll need to secure some strategic agreements with the key industry partners in order to make sure that there's sustainability of those work-based learning experiences going forward. We'll need to monitor student engagement, look at the numbers, ask them, are they happy? Similarly with the academics, how are they finding it? Are they having any issues? So consultation, communication will be key throughout. And of course, we're going to have to keep up to date with technology. It's always developing. You know, you had Deirdre talking about the bots there earlier as well. And there's probably lots of things we could be doing, you know, on social media groups, and what do the students suggest, you know, and that'll be very interesting when we roll it out the first time to see, would they have any suggestions for improving it from a digital and online point of view. And with a long-term view, we would actually look to adapt some of this content for the undergraduate population, particularly sessions like the navigating emotions and building resilience. We just think that that's so relevant to everyone, really. So it wouldn't take a huge amount to then adapt the interactive slides to a different cohort as well. So that's been quite a whistle-top tour there through the module and the project. But I suppose I wanted to say to you that we actually submitted this project only 2 weeks ago to the National Forum. And many of the resources, like all of the sessions, are available on open access and a showcase video. So it's not actually up on the website yet, but it will be going up shortly under SATL 2019. But there's also a video, as I said. So if you want to contact me, I'm happy to share any of that with any of you. Or if you have any questions as well, we're happy to have a chat with anyone at any stage. So I'll stop sharing my. I hope you found that helpful.
Thank you so much, Fiona. I think we've just run out of time. The timer's gone off here. There was a question, it was really around you know, the sorts of work-related experience that and consultancy projects, and really whether there were any particular preferences from students in that regard. So that was really what people were interested in, whether it was projects or mini internships they were interested in. So
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We did ask the students that, when we ran the focus groups, initially. And I think it depends on the discipline and how comfortable they feel. So a business PhD student, for example, might be really comfortable on the consulting side, whereas an arts and humanities might feel, actually, I want to go into this charity and I want to be shown the ropes. I want to learn all about policy and apply my learning. So I think that it really does depend on where they're coming from. You want to really focus it on their skill set, and making the most of that skill set. So they were really divided on that, but the main thing that they were saying to us was that they wanted options and flexibility. So that's why we designed 2 main options.
okay, Fiona, thanks so much. It's been an excellent session, really interesting, and obviously